This video is to introduce you to the CSharper metaprogramming framework. First, you should go to Codeplex and download and install CSharper, and then download the CSharper 3.0 User's Guide. We're going to be talking today about the section Getting Started with CSharper. First of all, we're going to demonstrate how to apply declarative tracing provided by the CSharper installation to a simple project. Now, we don't have a project already, so we're going to create a simple console application that prints out Hello World. So we'll go ahead and create this CSharper demo. And we'll call it application. The idea behind declarative tracing is to be able to provide the ability to annotate a method with a simple trace attribute, such that the entry and exit of the method can be traced to the system's diagnostic tracing system. So let's create our trace attribute.
So good. Attribute will be public.
So we'll make that attribute public. And then our next step is going to be to move the trace attribute to a new file. And after we do that, we're going to put it in the namespace CSharper Quick Starts. And the reason for that is because we wanted to match the sample metaprogram that we installed with CSharper. So next, let's just configure tracing to go to the console window.
Okay, we're basically ready with the code.
So we're basically ready with the program. Our next step is going to be to configure the project to use CSharper to do the pre-processing. So we'll add that to our conditional compilation symbols and save it. And then we can compile and run. And now you see the expected results. Now let's take a look at the application in Reflector. So we'll open our program, get to our method here, and you'll see what has happened. So the first thing that's obvious is we have our line of code here in the body, but you can see that the body's been extended. First of all, you can see the try finally block, and next you'll see that we have a trace on the enter and the trace on the exit of the method in the finally. For the remainder of this demonstration, we're going to show you how to develop, debug, and deploy your own custom metaprograms. In CSharper, metaprograms are called compositions. The easiest way to create a composition is to use the CSharper composition library template provided with the CSharper installation. So we'll create a tracing composition now. So next, let's create a copy of the trace attribute so we can have it available within our metaprogram. And then we're going to change the base class of the trace attribute to inherit runtime capabilities from CSharper. And our next step is to create a tracing composer. Composers within CSharper metaprograms are modules that are responsible for transforming the code itself. So we'll create our tracing composer and then derive it from the CSharper composer base class.
from Composer class provided with CSharper framework. In Composer's mode, so processing inside the framework
Composers
is done in
contain event handlers for compile time events.
execution underscore
To create a compile time event handler, create a public method
parameter
that has arguments
attribute.
that match your compile time event. So in our case,
Second,
we're going to create a transform method that finds methods that are annotated with our trace attribute.
so essentially,
Now to create a compile time event handler, the method must be named _transform and be marked with the multi-override attribute. You can have as many methods as you want for as many trace attributes or as many code, C# code elements.
now we can implement.
Now let's implement the code transformation just like we saw earlier in Reflected. First we're going to wrap our method body in a try-finally scope. And then let's add the entry message for our tracing. We're going to add that at the beginning of the try. You can see here throughout we're using our CSharper code DOM to add the code here to our method. So let's change a little bit of the text here in our messages.
And repeat. Okay, the entry message will have entry.
And now you can see that the entry message has our entering with the declaring type name
the name
and the method name.
and then it would be
And then you can see that we're going to extend our entry by putting that in there along with
that is being provided.
the log category that was defined in the attribute itself.
Exactly the same.
Now for the end or for the exit trace, we're going to do something exactly the same here and just add this to our finally statement.
Okay, we need to register.
Next we're going to need to register our composer within our composition.
Position that has been generated. By the wizard.
Okay, now let's set this as our startup project. And now we'll show you how to debug and deploy what we just developed. First go to the project properties, go to the debug tab,
Go to debug tab,
and select CSharper Studio as our startup program,
which is from the CSharper.
which was installed with CSharper.
CSharper Studio.
Okay, now let's run our program.
Application. You will see
Now you see that CSharper Studio started.
it allows you to import.
So now let's import our project first.
Let's say C projects C# application product.
Then we'll save and compile. Now you see we've gotten an error. We actually intentionally inserted that error before to show you how we can debug.
I have a minus.
Okay, let's go fix our mistake. Let's open our tracing composer, and we can add the S to the end of system diagnostics. In addition, let's copy that to our finally statement, because we should always be using fully qualified names, because we don't know if the using is in the source code. So now let's run it and compile it, and we should see that we have no more errors. And we don't. So we can also look at the source code in CSharper Studio, and you can see actually what is inserted. So now let's show how to debug using CSharper Studio. So let's put a breakpoint in our method. We'll go back to CSharper Studio and compile. And now you see you can use the full Visual Studio debugging experience to see what's going on. And then we can deploy the code with the deploy button. And now we can compile our application using our custom composer. And let's run it. And now you can see our tracing statements.